Let me show you something very special that I have here. It's a carved olive wood Bible from Jerusalem, like the one Shapira sold in his shop. It even has Shapira's logo, the Jerusalem cross. Another witness to this Bible is the famous writer Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain. And in fact, look at this letter. While he was in Jerusalem, Twain took a piece of stationery with Mediterranean Hotel printed on the top, just above the date, September 24, 1867, and wrote to the local bookbinder on Christian Street in the Old City these instructions.
Fix up the little Bible I selected. The one that has backs made of balsam wood from the Jordan, oak from Abraham's tree at Hebron, olive wood from the Mount of Olives. Put on it this inscription: Mrs. Jane Clemens, from her son. Mount Calvary, September 24, 1867.
Samuel Clemens visited Jerusalem as a part of writing this book, Innocents Abroad. In it, he wrote his impression of the desolation of Jerusalem as an eyewitness to the fact that the Holy Land was a land without a people, intended for a people without a land. Moses Shapira, this is the only known photograph we have of him. His story actually begins in the middle of 19th century Ukraine, in the area known as the Pale of Settlement.
Russia, 1855. What drove Moses Shapira from his home to the heart of Jerusalem? And what unseen hand guided his path on the enigmatic journey of a man whose life was marked by providence and mystery? Moses Shapira's story begins in the middle of the 19th century Ukraine, in the area known as the Pale of Settlement, where the Russian Tsar had mandated that all Jews live in small villages called shtetls, reminiscent of those depicted in Fiddler on the Roof. Long before Zionism began in the 1890s, a divine stirring began, calling the Jewish people back to the Holy Land. Among those stirred was Shapira's father, who set out on foot to Jerusalem and was never heard from again. At the age of 25, Shapira left his homeland and kin, embarking on a journey with his grandfather to the land of his ancestors. They arrived in Jerusalem in 1856, where God had plans for the young immigrant. But illness beset Shapira, leading him to a hospital where he was cared for by a German nurse named Rosette. Their bond grew, and on April 23, 1861, Moses married Rosette. Shortly thereafter, Shapira opened his shop on Christian Street. Over the next decade, his reputation and business flourished. But was it merely chance that brought Shapira to these crossroads? Or was there a greater force at work, guiding his steps toward a destiny yet unwritten?
This was the golden age of biblical archaeology, and Shapira's story is right in the middle of the famous discoveries that were taking place in 19th century Jerusalem. It is said that Queen Victoria herself used her own money to promote the quest to uncover the ancient truths of biblical archaeology.
Moses Shapira's traditional education, steeped in Hebrew texts, uniquely positioned him to become one of the earliest scholars in the study of Paleo-Hebrew. His deep understanding of these ancient scripts set the stage for his pivotal role in interpreting significant archaeological finds. One such find is the Mesha Stela, also known as the Moabite stone. This artifact, inscribed in Paleo-Hebrew, was the first of its kind to be discovered. The stela provides crucial historical insights into the Moabites, a people mentioned in biblical texts. Intriguingly, the narrative on the Mesha Stela parallels the account in 2 Kings of the Old Testament, the connection between the Moabite stone and the biblical narrative. Could this stela be evidence of the accuracy of the Bible? Scholars say yes, but Shapira's scholarly pursuits didn't end there. He also was asked to translate the Siloam inscription found in the city of David. His translation recognized that this inscription supported the biblical story of the construction of a water tunnel during King Hezekiah's reign, as recorded in 2 Kings 20. These discoveries help solve speculation about the accuracy and historicity of the biblical accounts.
By the end of 1871, Moses Shapira had become a respected dealer in antiquities, eventually specializing in manuscripts. Thanks to successful ventures into Yemen and Egypt, Shapira then acquired a valuable collection of Hebrew manuscripts. The Royal Museum in Berlin purchased some of them, and the famed British Museum purchased many others. So suspended outside his shop, a white sign bearing the gold letters read, Moses W. Shapira, bookseller and antiquarian. The five-fold Jerusalem cross occupied the center of the sign, and beneath it was the designation, correspondent to the British Museum. One day, some Arab visitors, including a noted sheikh, entered the cluttered shop and made their way to find Shapira in his usual place. He sat at a table in a little nook, surrounded by a precious collection of copies of the Talmud, Gospels, and the Torah scrolls. However, Shapira's visitors had come to speak of the chance discovery of some blackened leather strips with barely discernible writing on them. Shapira's interest was immediately piqued. The story was there was a group of Bedouins. These Bedouin tribesmen sought refuge in a cave in the desolate wilderness east of the Dead Sea, a place where history's secrets were long buried. This valley, once known in ancient times as the Arnon River, etched into the Book of Numbers, was no ordinary place, a land steeped in biblical history. Inside this cave, something far more enigmatic awaited, a bundle meticulously wrapped in faded cloth, blackened strips of ancient leather inscribed with cryptic symbols, a language lost to time. Shapira, too, felt the pull. It called to him as if he had always been a part of its story.
Jerusalem, 1878. Could it be that history has repeated itself? 60 years before the famed discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, a group of Bedouins stumbled upon an ancient scroll near those same mysterious waters. The story is almost too similar to ignore. Ancient scrolls, hidden in a cave, wrapped in cloth, coated with a tar-like substance, originally dismissed as a forgery until science proved otherwise. But is this mere coincidence, or does it hint at a pattern lost to time? This was not the first time such discoveries were made. As early as the 3rd century, Origen, a church father, spoke of manuscripts unearthed from jars near the Dead Sea. A tale echoed by Eusebius. And again around 800 AD, Bishop Timotheus of Baghdad wrote of another such find. Each discovery, strikingly alike, raises questions that challenge our understanding of the past. Are these simply random occurrences, or do they suggest a deliberate effort to preserve ancient scriptures waiting to be found?
Now back to Shapira's shop. For the price of a bakshish, just a few gold coins, the Bedouin tribe handed over the leather scrolls, many being more legible than the others. For several weeks, in a workspace above the best tourist stop in Jerusalem's Old City, the 16 leather strips of text began to yield their long-held secrets. The message on the manuscript amazed Shapira. He soon came to believe that he might have performed the most significant archaeological discovery of all time. Shapira recognized the narrative as a version of the Bible's book of Deuteronomy, but with notable differences. Like Deuteronomy, Shapira's scroll contained a version of the 10 Commandments, but combined the first 2 commandments into one and added a new commandment, number 10, you shall not hate your brother in your heart. Doesn't that sound like Jesus' words? So this scroll is like the Deuteronomy scrolls that were found later in the Dead Sea Scrolls that were also written in Paleo-Hebrew.